I never talk about this stuff with my wife. She never knew what I did, and she never knew what I saw.
It's hard to talk to just anybody about what you've gone through because they've never experienced it.
So the look on your face right now is why we don't talk about it.
This is a 59 News special report. These veterans' voices and their stories start right now.
Kevin Meadows. I was in the United States Army in Somalia. That was a nightmare. We had to sit at the base and listen to these guys getting hit from all sides. So eventually, they decided to risk sending in a couple of Blackhawks, and they needed medics who could fast rope out of a helicopter. And because I had been assigned with infantry units the majority of my time in the service, I was able to do that. So we fast roped in to Mogadishu out of a helicopter, and needless to say, the pilots were in a hurry to get the helos out of there because they didn't want to be the next one to go down. That was just a bad deal all the way around. We went there to help those people, and they turned on us like a rabid dog. We had to spend the night, and that was crazy. And the next day, we ended up walking out. We had to walk to the stadium. That's where the UN had their headquarters set up. But that night was just nuts. I mean, had so many guys wounded. And they had gunships flying over the city all night. And they would unload thousands of rounds. But the crazy thing, it sounded like rain because of the brass from the gunships hitting the rooftops. Sounded like it was raining, but it wasn't raining rain, it was raining shell casings. And I lost 2 guys that night. Didn't even know their names. The most banged up of them were dead, and many of the others were wounded, and anything from through and through gunshot wound to sucking chest wounds, burns from explosions. They needed help. They needed all the help they could get. We ended up at the UN headquarters. You know, it was slow. It was slow going because, like I say, we were under fire about the whole time. When that went down, I mean, it was all hell literally broke loose. And it was 2 days. And, you know, I at the time, I was very glad to just be able to do something because it's such a helpless feeling. You could hear all of this chaos going on over the radio. I mean, everybody was listening to what was going on. They were taking casualties left and right, you know, the vehicles being disabled. It was crazy. We already had 2 helicopters down. Didn't know the fates of the crew at that time, and it was insanity. It really was. There was not a let up. It's not like they decided to go home for the evening and go have supper and we'll pick it up the next morning. It wasn't like that. I mean, literally, the whole damn city turned out to kill us. That's a fact. Well, I do not regret my time in the Army at all. And I would encourage young people to join, to serve. I mean, we live in the greatest country in the world, and that has to be protected. That has to be defended, and there has to be another generation. Look, I'm old now. I can't do it. Somebody else has got to step up.
Hank Fisher. I was in the Armed Forces, U.S. Army. I was LT's radio man out in the jungle. When I got hit, there was 1,500 of them and 300 of us. And it started at 6 o'clock in the morning. The first 4 rounds that came in took out B Company's mortars, and then all hell broke loose. And we were sitting in a hole, we were fighting, and I had a guy about 6 inches from my head. An RPG round went off right in front of us. I got hit in the left side of the face, my eye, took 3/4 of the vision of my eye, and he lost the whole left side of his head. He was like this far from my head. He was killed instantly. It just took the whole left side of his head right off. So we sat in a hole for the next 6 hours listening to his nerves work. You could hear him breathing. I will demonstrate how that sound. And then we were so hot, the chopper pilot, we needed to be resupplied, and he goes, "I'm not coming in." He goes, "You guys are too hot." I said, "Well, all right. Take all the ammo back and bring out body bags." So radio went dead silence, and he goes, "I'll kick it out at a chopper." I said, "You get it on the ground, we'll take care of it." So he made a nosedive straight in. They kicked the ammo out of the chopper, and they went right back up. And I thanked them. And then we went and got our ammo we needed. And the fight lasted until noontime. And after that, I ended up in a hospital for the next 4 months.
I was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam in 1971. When I first went into country, I was a scout pilot. We would fly in what were called hunter-killer teams. I was this aircraft that I flew was a light observation helicopter we called a Loach. And I would sit in the right-hand seat, normally just with a gunner sitting behind me on the floor of the aircraft with an M60 machine gun in his lap and a whole bunch of smoke grenades handy. And we would go out at altitude with the Cobra gunship. We were trying to find out where the enemy was and what they were up to. So we would go out at altitude, and then I would drop down to treetop level and do right-hand circles. And I would look for trails, campfires, bunkers. When we took fire, which was fairly often, the gunner would throw a smoke grenade. The Cobra gunship would go in and put down fire, give us the opportunity to get out. That was the theory, and it worked much of the time. Sometimes it didn't. It was a dangerous mission because you were so close to the enemy and so vulnerable. And one day I went to the flight line and cranked up and found that my radios were down, so I could not go. So my friend was out on the flight line. He said, "Oh, we'll go." And he went with he actually had an observer and a gunner, and apparently was hit with an RPG, a rocket-propelled grenade, and all of them were killed. I was the one who put his things together to be sent to his family, including a poem he had written that was, almost sounded like he knew he was going to die there. I later someone got in touch with me, and I had not known that he had a son born, but he never saw. And Many years later, I was able to get together with him in Massachusetts, where he was from, which was really special for me to see him, and I think for him to have a connection with somebody who knew him well. So that was pretty special. During the time I was actually there, was more difficult for my family than it was for me in many ways. As an aircraft commander, you had to be focused at all times. I was responsible for my crew and any passengers. You just got up and you did your job all day long, and then you came back and drank enough to be able to sleep at night and get up and do it again. You weren't thinking about the danger, you weren't thinking about the consequences. But my family didn't know what was going on. And my father worked at the Pentagon as a statistician. He would come in every day and look for my name on MIA, missing in action, and KIA, killed in action. I can't even imagine how excruciating that would be.
One time back way in, I think it was 1981, I thought about it. I was in the woods deer hunting, and I had the rifle there. Very depressed, down. I thought, well, I can take care of this. And I said, what are my two children going to do? I was the provider. I was the one they talked to if they had issues. I was the one that shot basketball with them, played baseball, picked them up when they wrecked their bike and skinned their knees. I didn't want them to have to live through the rest of their lives that their dad committed suicide. And I got the hell out of that woods with that gun.
If you're a veteran in crisis or know of a veteran in crisis, please don't hesitate. Reach out to our crisis hotline any time of day, 24/7.
Next.
I let them down. And that's not what we do.
You're watching a 59 News special report.
Bill Cucurell, United States Marine Corps. I think I was always just destined to be a Marine. And, I looked at the Army and some of the options and opportunities they had, but just the Marine Corps fit me. So after 9/11, in 2004, we deployed and then went into Iraq, Al Anbar province. Yes, my friend Mikey Beard. Mikey went into a dark hole. He regressed, he stayed by himself. And eventually, it was a drug overdose. And he didn't reach out. And worse, we didn't reach out, his brothers. We should have been there. And we should have been watching closely. And we didn't. And we let him down. And I think that's what's important, is that if you know somebody and they're hurting, don't expect or assume that they'll be okay. Make the connection. Make the connection and reach out. And sometimes a phone ain't the answer. You know, it's let's see each other eye to eye. What's going on? What's happening? And with Mikey, it just, I think the pressure of everything that came on him, and he was looking to be numb, and it didn't work. He was a beautiful, beautiful kid. I don't think I could do it again. But, you know, it's people that are out there, if you're struggling, you're hurting, reach out. Reach out to your fellow veterans. Look at the VFW, the American Legion. You know, get out there and create your camaraderie. You know, it is different. But if you stay connected, and you're hurting one day or whatever, just call and talk to somebody. You know, how are you? You okay today? You know, how's the family? But when you isolate, that's damaging, very damaging. I'm sorry. I should have been there. And I let him down. And that's not what we do. And I did it. And it was hard. Because, like you said, that didn't work. I should have been there. You know, I was a section leader. I got him out of that hellhole, but I couldn't save him here. And I like to, in my own personal selfishness, I would like to think that it was just an overdose. That's why I cope with it. He was hurt. And you know, he was just a good kid. But he was hurting. And understand too, David, it was a combination. But you take everything from, it was me, him, and Massey one night we got hit with an IED. So between probably traumatic brain, because it was a hell of a shot. Didn't get us though. But between traumatic brain, coming home, loneliness, looking to be numb, and we just, and I don't blame anybody else. You know, as far as, you know, I should have took it upon myself. He had some other guys, but I think, not to be arrogant, I think maybe if I just would have got him out of the situation he was in, and let's go another direction, Mikey might still be here. At least I'd like to think so.
So we always joke amongst the different services, you know, we always have our jokes and jabs, but at the end of the day, we're all in it, one fight, and we're definitely brothers and sisters in arms, and you have to lean upon them. You know, those are, when I spent a lot of time overseas, that was your family, because you were thousands of miles away from your family. That was it, that's what you had. So you really learn to lean upon your brothers and sisters in arms for whatever support you may need, whether it be physical, mental, or whatever. So having that support system there, and it continues after your service. You know, a lot of organizations, the American Legion, the VFW, and all those are out there for our veterans to reach out and get involved in the community and have that camaraderie and that kind of fellowship again. So definitely would recommend anyone reach out and look for those opportunities to get involved and have some peers that have gone through what you've gone through. Because a lot of times it's hard to talk to just anybody about what you've gone through because they've never experienced it. And so it makes it very difficult to to share some of the stories with those that haven't been through your situation. You know, that's a permanent solution to a temporary problem, one that they can definitely go out and find help. There's help out there for them. Maybe someone wasn't there for them when they needed them, or whatever the case may be, but it is very disheartening that they feel that's their only solution to their problem, because it's not. There's plenty of help out there for them. You know, your family, your friends, your brothers and sisters in arms, we're all here to support you. We want the best for you, so please seek out whatever help you need. We're here for you in any capacity that you may need. We all want to see you get better and succeed in life, so please seek out help.
You're watching a 59 News special report.
I was in the Pentagon on 9/11. It was totally opposite of where the airplane hit the building, but we were responsible for responding. We were sent out to multiple locations. I stayed back and assumed one of the leadership roles, and I had to organize and triage, and then once everyone was gone, I was the only provider who could take care of them. So I took care of a couple of burn patients, actually a few burn patients, and that was really tough because these were people you saw every day in the Pentagon, and here they are with their uniforms melted to them and their hair singed off, and it was a tough day for that. We were ushered through the building, and we came out on the impact zone, and it was really kind of, I guess surreal is a good name, because the building had already collapsed by then, and you could see this one office that had the desk, a clock, and their flag still in it. And it was like time stops right there. And the clock was at 9:37 or whatever time that happened, so it was, that's when it sunk in. Don't bury it, don't compartmentalize it, because we tend to pack it up, put it in a package, and then press on, because that's what we have to do. You still have to get the job done. And I had packed it up for 3 years before I even talked about it. And it made it a lot harder to deal with, because having to go through it and visualize and restate the process and stuff, it became harder because some of the memories were foggy. So if you get it when it's early, I think you do much better, because you don't have time to add your own opinions to it, I guess is a good way to say that, your own inflections, because, you know, I felt like I was a horrible provider because I don't know if anybody knew what I did that day, and was it right, was it wrong? I never got any feedback, so I was always afraid to ever take care of another patient with a burn. I believe in a divine entity, whether it's fate, karma, guru, God, whatever, but I think if it's your day to die, it's your day to die. You're gonna die anyhow, so you might as well do the best you can that day.
I became a Navy nurse. Navy nurses do a lot of sitting behind desks. They do a lot of management versus floor work. So I decided I didn't really care for that a whole lot. I really liked the trauma that I had seen while I was with the Marine Corps and with the Navy as a corpsman. So I switched over to the Army in 2007. And at that point I was able to focus more on trauma, dealing with those situations. And then in 2010, I became the commander for the medical command for the state of Maine, National Guard and Army Reserve. If that were my child on the battlefield or in a car accident or having a heart attack or an overdose, I would want somebody like me to be able to care for them, because I care that much for my patients. I treat every patient like it's one of my own family members, because that's the way I would want my child or my family member to be treated. So when you deal with trauma, you put the trauma, I visualize it as a box, like a shoebox. You put that trauma in a box. You shut the box, put a lid on it nice and tight, you shift fire to the left or to the right, and you keep moving forward. That is the military way, right? Anybody who's been in combat knows that. You just keep moving forward. If you stop moving, you die. So after a while that box gets full and that lid's going to come off and you're not going to be able to put it back on. So gaining control of that anger, of the things that you did or you didn't do while you were in country or wherever you were or whatever the situation was, is something that takes a lot of introspection as well as self-control and discipline. Recognizing what's happening, understanding that that anger is getting out of control, your emotions are getting out of control, your brain is now controlling you, and being able to temper that back and funnel that anger into another outlet. For young people who are coming home and having issues with PTSD and thoughts of suicide, just remember that, one, you're not alone. We all go through periods of having feelings that are detrimental to our health. Reaching out to your family members, involving them in the process of what emotions you're feeling, what is happening at that moment, as well as how they can assist you in coping with those feelings and those emotions, keeping them under control. And it's an everyday process of just kind of going through it and keeping that discipline and that self-control in play so that you don't allow those emotions to get out of control. Once they're out of control, they're very hard to keep in the box, okay? Involving the family is a big deal. If you don't have family members, involve the family that you just left. So the military is a huge family. I still have half a dozen people that I can call at any moment and say, hey, I'm in trouble, I need help, and they'll be on the next plane. I haven't seen them in 10 or 15 years, but they're still there. So we all come from this great big family, and we're all involved, and we need to get rid of the stigma of it's unmanly or it's not tough to ask for help, because at this point we know we've come far enough along to where it is okay to ask for help.
My name's Steve Ellison. I was a Navy corpsman. I was stationed at the National Naval Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland. And that was the flagship hospital for the Navy. So a lot of Vietnam veterans, the recent ones and maybe some from even early Vietnam, were coming there to be rebuilt. We basically dealt with head injuries, facial reconstruction. A lot of guys would lose their jaws from getting hit in Vietnam. And you literally the doctors would rebuild them a jaw from a rib. This was an open squad bay. It was beds on both sides of the wall, and when it was full, there was about 50 men. I should say boys, because they were boys. Our ward had a private room for a doctor. It had a bed in it for him to sleep when he wasn't needed, because they were on 24-hour duty. I was there 19 months. I never saw anyone in that room. I never saw anyone sleep in that bed. After I got off active duty, I stayed in the reserves. And I was attached to a Marine Corps unit while I was in the reserves. To this day, if I have my Navy corpsman hat on, and I don't have it on today, but I usually do, if I run into a Marine that I don't even know, they still call me Doc. It's a badge of honor I wear.
You're watching a 59 News special report.
Back in '79, I was 17 years old. My parents signed for me, and I joined. My father was 24 years Navy, so I grew up all around the world growing up. I knew the military and everything. And I did 6 years and stationed at Camp Pendleton. So I went through all the training, California, 29 Palms, combined arms exercise, desert warfare training, Bridgeport, California for mountain warfare training, and then Coronado for amphibious, and then we got on a ship for 6 months to Okinawa and Philippines, Hong Kong. That was pretty much my experience. Well, I invaded the embassy. And what else? I used to see the Marines all the time on the bases I lived at. They would salute us in. My dad was chief petty officer, but they'd still salute us, me and my brother in the back. We'd be like, hey, and they'd be there to salute us, so. And it hurt me. It was like an early 9/11, I guess you would say. You know, us vets now, it's hard. That's why we all hang together. We use the VA because we run into each other there. It took me 20-some years before I'd even go to the VA. Now I'm up there 5 or 6 times a month, you know. My body is so beat up, you know, from years. And from a lot of, in the service too, you know. I had a traumatic brain injury in 1982 before they even had a name for the traumatic brain injuries. So dealing with that and everything, it's interesting, I guess you would say.
I was in aviation most of my career, so most of the time you're just out on the flight line turning wrenches, you know. And you know, after years of doing that, it gets a little mundane. You start feeling like, well, my job's not that important. I'm not really impacting the fight all that much. All I'm out here doing is turning wrenches. But in Afghanistan, I was in the 101st Airborne Division. We were first conventional forces on ground in Afghanistan in January of 2002. So was that 3 or 4 months after 9/11? And that big battle in March in the Shah-e-Khat Valley, where they were trying to get bin Laden. We only had 8 Apaches there. I was an Apache mechanic. And we got shot up real bad. Our helicopters were Swiss cheese, basically. 2 of them never flew again. And we stayed up for about 24 hours, just constant, trying to get as many as we could back in the air in a flyable condition, because we had to repair hydraulic lines. There were bullet holes in windshields, all kinds of stuff. The problem was our ground forces needed those Apaches in the air. So we were patching bullet holes in rotor blades, for example, with duct tape and adhesive. not the way you're supposed to do it, but you know, that the next day after we got those Apaches back in the air, I was back out on the flight line after I got some sleep, and a young infantry soldier walked up, just out of the blue, walked up to us and was almost in tears and thanked us for getting those Apaches back in the air, because his position had been overrun and he was out of ammo. And an Apache came up over the ridge and hovered above his position and scared off the forces that were about to overrun him. And that changed my whole perspective on everything. So if somebody's watching this and you're a mechanic or you've got some ancillary job that may not seem all that glorifying, it's important, because I didn't think my job was important until that happened. And it really puts things into perspective. If we had not gotten those Apaches back in the air, that guy'd probably be dead right now, you know?
Coming up next.
It just makes people think about the ones that didn't come home.
You're watching a 59 News special report.
The missing man table. That is something we do here every year to commemorate those who didn't make it home. And it's just a little table we set up in the corner with a white tablecloth and a place setting with a rose and a ribbon, and we leave it there for about a week, and it just makes people think about the ones that didn't come home. And we do that around Memorial Day every year, once a year. And that's all that's about. It's been a tradition for many years in the military. For example, Army, Navy, Air Force, it didn't matter. Around Memorial Day, you go to the chow hall to eat, and there's a table set up separate, and nobody touches it. Everybody knows what it is, and it's just a tradition that I decided to bring home with me. Oh yeah. Don't want to talk about that. But yeah, there were a few. I think about them a lot. A couple of them on the Vietnam Memorial. I went up there one time. Me and my wife jumped on the motorcycle and rode up to DC with the Run for the Wall group. And I went over to the memorial and started looking up names. I made it to one of them. And that was the last time I was there. Hard to think about those guys. But we do. They never go away as long as you carry them in your thoughts in your heart.
You're watching a 59 News special report.
So I'm a hobby blacksmith, or backyard blacksmith as some people would call. I open up my shop to veterans in the community. Intro level blacksmithing classes. If they stick around long enough, I can teach them how to make hammers and tongs and their own tools and stuff. Or if they're interested in knife making or ornamental ironwork. I'm not going to say I'm a professional, but I've got a little experience in a little bit of everything, and so I can teach them what I know at least. I've had a lot of guys reach out to me, ask me to just come to the shop and just have hammer time, because you know, sometimes they might be going through stress or something. You know, swinging a hammer and beating stuff kind of gets some frustration out. Well, I've always wanted to do veteran outreach. I'm a auxiliary member of the local VFW back home in Hazard, Kentucky. And my dad's a veteran. You know, I've got a lot of experience with dealing with people with PTSD and other issues, so it hits close to home for me. The only thing I've ever known was military life, and I've seen the struggles a lot of these veterans go through, men and women. They go through hardship, you know, especially when they get deployed. You never know what they've seen or what they went through.
Middle for Vets, it was a program I started after I retired. I had been going to the VA in Providence, and I was in some groups for PTSD, and I just happened to start talking with this one fellow who I had seen but never met in some of the different groups, and he had had a really tough time. He was homeless for a while. He lost his family because he lost his job, couldn't find another one, lived on the streets, and he was getting his food items from soup kitchens and food pantries. So when I met Ronnie, he was, you know, he told me his story and what I did. I invited him to the cafeteria the following Monday, and when he met me, I had purchased a $100 gift card to a food supermarket, and I gave it to him. And he started to cry, grabbed my hand, he said, "No one's ever done this for me." And that was the second the Vittles was born. We have a nutritious food program because, you know, healthy body, healthy mind. Nutritious food, you know, hopefully will lead to a better outlook or perspective. You know, it brings a tear to your eye because the veterans we have are just great people. They're just great people who have fallen on hard times. We not only address the food and nutrition issues of the veteran, but we're into the psychological as well, because they have someone who cares for them. They'll actually tell me that, there's probably someone who needs it more than me. And you shake your head and say, who? A veteran is much freer talking to another veteran than to a psychologist or a psychiatrist or someone in the private sector, even his buddy next door, because he knows that a veteran will never judge another veteran. We have had to reduce the maximum income allowed per year because the economy is so bad. Our donations are way down. They're down about 32%.
I am an active duty medical service corps officer in the United States Army. I am stationed at Fort Carson and I work at the Combat Aviation Brigade there. I consider Union, West Virginia home. And unfortunately, a lot of service members on the active duty side experience this hesitation with seeking help or being vulnerable with their peers because there is a stigma attached to mental health and it being associated with weakness or inability to do your job or inability to, have the strength to complete the mission. That's not the case whatsoever. There's a lot of service members that have mental health problems in the Army or any branch of service that can still do their jobs regularly. There's plenty of folks with ADHD, OCD, depression that the branches of service can treat with medication or through therapy. What I would say to people who are struggling, who have transitioned out of the military and are struggling to find help or to request help is that you're not alone. You are not the only person that has struggled with their mental health in the military, and you're not the only person that has experienced a crisis or issues finding identity after transitioning out of the military. It's probably the most common experience that veterans have when leaving the military is maybe an initial sense of relief because they don't have the pressures that the military puts on us a lot. So this is not something that is unique to you as a person who might be struggling with the transition out of the military. This is a very common experience for, I would say, most veterans leaving the military.
Every veteran's a brother. It doesn't matter what service you're in. I might tease you about being a Marine because I'm Army, but when it comes down to it, I got your back. He has my back. Simply because we all were in the same club. We're in the same organization. And that organization was, hey, we'll go do what we need to do to defend our country, to defend freedom, whatever we got to do. I know in the veteran community, in that brotherhood, sisterhood, if I need something, I got to do is ask. If they need something, what can I do to help you? And, I might not even know you personally. You just may be in the same organization, DAV, Disabled American Veterans, VFW, wherever we meet, and people ask, why you wear the hat? Well, if I have my Army hat and you got your Marine hat, most likely I'm gonna come up and we're gonna shake hands and say, how you doing, brother or sister? And I may have never seen that guy before in my life, but we're brothers. That's very important. The things that some of these guys, including myself, experienced overseas is not the kind of things that, most people ever see in their lifetime, except maybe on TV or in the movies. Get in touch with the people that are like-minded, maybe former veterans that are gonna help you out, maybe help you get a job, help you get some training, help you get the physical and mental care that you need. And the main thing that I say to former veterans, and especially young veterans that are having trouble, adjusting and transitioning is, life is good. No matter how bad it gets, life is good. If you need to talk, call somebody. Call me. If you need, someone just to come sit with you and listen, call somebody. Call me. Life is good. It never gets bad enough to do anything to hurt yourself.